Buying lenses is where photographers can lose their minds. I mean, there are primes, zooms, super zooms, f1.4 lenses, f2.8 lenses, macro lenses, telephoto lenses, and before you know it, you're carrying half a camera store in your backpack just to take a photo of a mountain. And after years of shooting here in the Northern Hemisphere in all kinds of ridiculous weather, I've learned that the perfect lens kit, it's usually one that you actually want to carry. So if I had to simplify my entire photography kit down to just 2 lenses, then these 2 would be the ones that I would keep. And honestly, it's the 2 that I carry with me like 88.5% of the time. All right, my friends, so before I show you these 2 lenses right here, then there are actually 1 or maybe 2 things that we need or you need to understand. And that's that there isn't really such thing as the perfect or the best lens. You see, I get asked this question all the time. Bro, what lens should I buy? Without giving me any context on what people are planning to shoot. So my answer is always the same. For what? Because the thing is, the best lens for portrait might be terrible lens for macro photography. And then the best lens for wildlife might be absolutely useless when it comes to street photography. Now, personally, then I'm mostly a landscape photographer, which means that I'm usually hiking, traveling, moving around, or carrying a backpack full of stuff, you know? And I'm also very often carrying my kids on my back while I'm trying to haul a bunch of camera gear at the same time. So for me, weight matters and size matters. That's what she said. But the thing is, the faster that the lens gets, then it's usually bigger, heavier, and it gets more expensive as well, because the glass inside it is just a lot bigger. Now, I'll be honest, like an f1.4 lens, it can be an absolute, like it can be amazing, that's what I'm trying to say. But when I'm out photographing landscapes, I barely go below f4. So carrying all that extra glass with me into the wilderness, like it does not make a ton of sense for me, you know? And I mean, that's the thing with lenses. Everything has a trade-off. You can get in more light and better quality, but by doing so, you will usually add a bunch of size and weight. And if you want to get more zoom range, you will usually have to give up some of that optical perfection, that like razor sharpness, you know? So the question is not what is the best lens? The question is, which trade-offs actually make sense for what and the way that you shoot. And that's where this 2 lens setups make so much sense. One covers almost everything from wide dish to telephoto, and then the other one covers the ultra-wide moments where the landscape just get big, dramatic, and hella sexy, you know? I don't know if landscape gets sexy, but maybe if you're wired like me, you go like, whoo, what is that? That beautiful mountain. And the reason I've been recently preferring this 2 lens setup is because with just these 2 lenses, I'm pretty much able to cover an absolute ridiculous amount of range without carrying a backpack full of glass. So let us start with, okay, that was unnecessarily, but let's start with this lens right here that has pretty much replaced more lenses in my bag than any other lens that I've ever had. And by the way, if you want to become a better photographer, then I sent out a free weekly newsletter. It's short, fun, easy to read, and it's packed with value. If that sounds interesting to you, then you can find it in the description. All right, so the lens that I have in my hand right now is the Tamron 25 to 200 millimeter f2.8 to f5.6. This is a compact super zoom lens that is ridiculously small and lightweight based on the crazy amount of range that you get. It only weighs 575 grams and it's so freaking versatile. Now, it is by no means a perfect lens, and it does have some flaws that I dive into in a second, but for what it can do and how many different lenses it replaces for me, it is good. I mean, I'm not getting paid anything from Tamron. I have no connections with them. I bought this lens with my own money. I'm just pretty happy. But one thing that I think is also cool is that it has a relatively short minimum focus distance of 0.16 meters, which allows it to be great, but you know, you can use it for some macro capabilities, which is pretty damn fun. Also, the filter thread here, for those of you who like to put filters on, is 67 millimeters, and it is equipped with a VXD autofocus, which is fast, quiet, and in my opinion, pretty good for both photos or videos. I've at least haven't had any big problems. Is Sony G Master better autofocus? Probably, but I've not had any major issues with the autofocus on this lens. It is also weather resistant, which is useful for when you're hiking or the snow and dust and all that. And it has 9 aperture blades, and the bokeh on it is pretty decent. It's not the most gorgeous bokeh that you've ever seen in your life, but it's all right, you know. Now, let us then talk about the drawbacks, because of course, if this would be the greatest lens of all time, then everybody would just use this and you would never have like the big wide lens there or anything else. Now, firstly foremost, it's variable aperture. So at 200 millimeters, you're shooting at f5.6, which can be a problem if there's more lower light scenarios. Also, from 25 to like 35, it's not the best image quality around the edges. It's pretty pin sharp in the middle, but the edges, you get slight vignette and whatnot. So that's definitely the trade-off. And then throughout the entire ranges, although the image quality is pretty good, it's not as good if you get a Sony G Master Prime lens or a Sigma Prime lens or something like that. But again, because I'm on the go all the time, and this allows me to just slap this lens on and pretty much almost never change, and it's so small and compact, I'm willing to do those trade-offs because it makes sense for my style of run and gun landscape photography where I'm out in the field all the time. So I'm willing to do that quality offering. Plus, since I've got this, I had the 28 to 200 millimeter before, and then when they launched this, I bought this one. Nobody has commented on my photos being like, bro, I think your photos is a less quality than what you used to have. So I don't think, at least on social media, people don't notice. When you blow them up with bigger prints, you might see, but I've printed in these sizes that you can see here, there around me, so you can just see there, but I have prints here as well, and I can't see a massive difference there either, you know. So what I'm trying to get off is that the trade-off is that it's not as optically perfect as carrying a dedicated prime or some more premium zoom lenses. And even though I wish that I lived in a world where I have like 10 millimeter to 400 millimeter in a tiny, small, compact lens that is tech sharp from like 10 millimeter all the way to 400 millimeters, and it's like f2 or whatever, while being super compact, then I don't live in that world, and that would be like impossible to make. So no lens can do absolutely everything, but this one covers a stupid amount of things that they can do for its size and weight. Now, despite its flaws, then as I said, for what I shoot, I think it's great. But there is another weakness about it that we haven't touched on yet. And that's the fact that 25 millimeter, it's not properly wide enough. I mean, it's wide-ish and it's great, but sometimes you wish you had something even wider, you know? So my friend, that is where this second lens comes in. Now the thing is, I don't just want to show you this lens right here, that is the lens that I happen to own, but I also want to show you two other options that might actually make more sense for a lot of people. However, before we do that, then here's a quick word from our sponsors, Artlist, who enable me to create videos like this for you guys for free on a consistent basis. And honestly, Artlist is one of those tools that I've been using for years and has basically become a part of every video that I make. I mean, I use it for music, sound effects, templates, plugins, and all the things that make a video feel more polished and professional without me having to jump between 15 different websites. But lately, what I'm using more and more is their AI toolkit. And it's not necessarily to replace the creative process, but to help me move faster when I'm stuck, or when I need a new starting point, or when I want to explore an idea visually before spending a bunch of time building it from scratch. And now Artlist has introduced their new AI agent, which makes that whole process feel a lot more conversational. Instead of just trying to perfectly engineer a prompt or figure out which AI model you should be using, you can just describe what you want in normal language, and the agent helps you move from an idea to a final output. Now the cool thing is that it also keeps context as you go, so if you create something that you want to push the style further, change a specific element, or explore a different direction, you don't have to start over every single time. And that's the part that I really like, because for us creators, the hardest part is often not having the ideas, we got plenty of them, you know, but it's getting from that messy idea in your head to something that you can actually use. So my friend, whether you're brainstorming a thumbnail concept, exploring different styles, or building a digital assets for a project, then this smart agent can help you stay in the flow and move much faster. So if you want to check out Artlist and try it out, then click the link down in the description. And as always, massive thank you for Artlist for helping me keeping these videos coming. Now, let's get back and take a look at this second lens that is right here. So the lens that I'm holding in my hand right here is the Sigma 16 to 28 millimeter f2.8. It is great, but it's by no means perfect, and I have my own issues with it, although that I bought it and I like it, and I'll tell you that in a second. Plus, because of that, I want to give you two options of different lenses that might make more sense for you. Now, first and foremost, what do I like about this lens? Now, of course, the fact that it goes from 60 millimeter to 28 millimeter with constant f2.8 is great. It's a nice low light lens. The 60 millimeter is an ultra wide angle look that I think is really nice. It's fairly small, especially for f2.8. It's like 450 grams. It's not super compact, but it's also not super big. And when you combined it with the Tamron 25 to 200 millimeter, you're pretty much covered from 60 millimeter all the way to 200 millimeter in a combo that is probably smaller than the Sony 70 to 200 millimeter f2.8 that I have up there. The big sexy white lens up there. Now what's more? Well, the filter thread is 72 millimeter. It is also pretty sturdy. I've dropped it pretty heavily and it works. I've had it for years. I've hammered on it in all type of different weathers and it still works. Now is it weather sealed? I think so. Don't take my word to the bank and be like, that Icelandic bag guy told me I could take it in rain. It didn't work. But I've had mine in rain and snowstorm, no problem at all. But again, do it on your own risk. Now another thing that is nice, that it says an internal focus, so it lens does not change sizes. So if you are a video creator and you're using gimbals, that is often pretty nice. Plus I like it when it don't change sizes. And then it has a stepping motor autofocus, which is quiet and smooth for both photos and videos. Have no problem there. I actually think Sigma makes fantastic glasses. I know that they're third-party glass, but in my opinion, they're kind of first-party right now. I know they can't be that, but the quality and the consistency of the quality of the lenses that they've been creating over the years is just great. Now, another thing that is cool too is that it has a fairly close focus distance of 0.25 meters, which is super useful if you want a little bit more details in the foreground. The thing is, as I said, it's fairly small, pretty compact, it's definitely lightweight, and it's perfect for those moments where the 25 millimeter isn't just wide enough. But as I said, there are other lenses out there that I might consider getting now if I were buying a lens today. And for starters, that would be the Sony 16 to 35 millimeter f2.8 Mark II. That lens is drop dead gorgeous. It's so good what it can do. Plus, I've always thought that the stop to 28 millimeter on the Sigma is a little bit awkward, and getting that full one to 35 millimeter makes a lot of sense. Plus, because the 25 to 35 millimeter on the Tamron isn't like it's where the lens is kind of the weakest, then having a lens that can cover those weak parts of the lens and having a 35 millimeter in your bag that looks better is super nice. But the 2.8 version of the Sony is quite big. So if you are strictly going for landscape and that is what you're shooting, then in my opinion, it would make more sense to get a Sony 16 to 35 millimeter f4. That lens is both cheaper and it's a lot smaller and more compact. So if you don't need a 2.8, then that is a really good lens to have in your backpack. And you're gonna have such a small and a tiny setup that is just killer setup, you know? But the thing is that the lens is only one part of getting a good photo. And if I'm fully honest with you, then there was this one thing that I personally misunderstood for years. And once that finally clicked, my photography changed way more than it ever did from buying new gear. So if you wanna see the idea that completely changed the way I approach photography, then watch this video here next.